Yes.
That's crazy. There was you had such a list of people.
Okay, I'm now recording this, and when we are done, I will place this on my website with your permission, if you don't mind, because you are one of the participants. So you agree, yes? You agree. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, thank you and welcome, Jeanette. Out of all the people who were supposed to come, oh, she's now in the waiting room. So let's see. She's come back. Okay. So I think we may have Sarah.
Yes, I'm trying.
Okay, good. Welcome back. Thank you. There's two of us now, three of us. Jeanette and Sarah Parker and myself. Out of all the people who were supposed to come, this is what we've got. That's okay. This is very important, and I'm going to put this video on my website so that other people can see this, because this is very important. And I've got to get moving because we only have 40 minutes, unless Zoom gives us more minutes. This, can you see this, Sarah?
Yes, where's
my T1 thoracic vertebrae has subluxated, and I could not fix it before, so I've got heat on, and after the meeting I will fix it. So there's two of us with neck issues. But you see, I fix it myself, or I go to a chiropractor, because I don't, nobody else knows what to do. Anyway, the title of this talk, lecture, meeting is Consciousness and what it is not, and how we are able to develop it. Now, the most important job I have is to be able to describe what it is, because most people have no idea. And the only reason I feel that I have an idea is because I've spent years researching it, listening to different people. A couple of hours ago, I was listening to Sadhguru, the Indian guru, who was talking about it. I listened to another guy in Holland, and I get plenty of ideas. But more important than that, I have had my own subjective experiences. I've experienced it. You see, consciousness is trying to describe the indescribable. It's like trying to describe to somebody the taste of an orange if they've never had an orange in their life before. How the hell would you be able to describe something that they have no idea? And most people have no idea what consciousness is. And I applaud and honor both of you for, we have somebody else who has now come in. I applaud you in participating in this, because at the end of it, we may be able to have a better understanding what consciousness is. Now, Rachel is with us. I cannot see you, Rachel, but can you hear me? Okay. I must tell you.
Yes.
Okay, you're a bit loud, maybe step back a little bit from the speaker, but thank you and welcome. I cannot see you, but I know you're there. I do not like doing this through a computer so much. It's better than nothing, and it can communicate with people from Israel, America, and Australia, which is basically what we have today. I prefer being with the people in a meeting hall, a theater, and eyeball to eyeball and feeling the energy. Yesterday, I watched a very interesting video about Joseph Campbell, the American philosopher. And I have put the link on my Facebook page. I urge everybody to look at it. It was fabulous. It was basically a documentary on his book, The Hero's Journey. This is so important for everybody to understand. It has a little bit to do with consciousness because basically Joseph Campbell was always talking about consciousness, always. And this is what he said. And this is a fundamental consideration in understanding what consciousness is. This is what he said. I do not believe people are looking for the meaning of life as much as they are looking for the experience of being alive. Now, this is extraordinarily profound because we are three-dimensional beings and we live a life of physical form, and we are conditioned and taught and programmed to act in a particular way. And the biggest program, I feel, is evident in most of us on this planet, is that we are to seek the experience of being alive and paying no attention to what the meaning of life is. And this is why so many people suffer, because they're so intent on accumulating money, possessions, a car, running here, there, you all over the world, me all over the world, running, looking, whatever. We are so into the experience of living life and all its experiences, relationships and suffering and family and whatever it is, that we have forgotten to pay attention, to ask ourselves, what is the meaning of life? Now, when we learn about the meaning of life, it gives meaning and value to everything else we've done. Without knowing the meaning of life, everything else we've done is actually without meaning. It's meaningless. And that's why we suffer so much. That's why when we run around the world, and I've done it, I've lived on 4 continents, 5 countries, many places within. Jeanette, you've done it also. And each time, it just wasn't what I thought it would be. Or I had some good experiences, and then I thought, well, is this all there is? Nah, let's go somewhere else. Let's do this, let's do that. And that's because we will never find happiness living life according to just seeking the experience of living life. So what else is there? What is the meaning of life? Well, the basis of everything is this word, this big C, consciousness. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, many years ago, used to tell me, and all of us, knowledge is structured in consciousness. Everything is structured in consciousness. That's interesting. What does that mean? Well, consciousness cannot be understood. It can only be experienced. And I am doing my best as I'm talking to describe an experience, which is basically not possible, but I'm going to do my best. The Webster's dictionary, let's start with that, said that the consciousness is the quality or state of being aware, especially of something within oneself. That's interesting, but doesn't quite get it. Another explanation is the state of being characterized by sensation, emotion, volition, and thought, the mind. Part of it, not the whole thing. This is good. The totality of conscious states of an individual. That's a bit closer. The Oxford Dictionary says the state of being aware of and responsive to one's surroundings. Very superficial. A person's awareness of perception of something. Very superficial. The fact of awareness by the mind of itself in the world. A little closer. So I'm going to go around a little bit. Are you all right, Jeanette?
Yeah, sorry, it's late night for me, but I'm here.
Okay. As long as you can sit up, that's okay.
Yeah, I've got cushions.
Everything manifest and non-manifest is contained within consciousness. Science calls this the unified field. Science has done a great deal in narrowing the gap between science and our physical creation and consciousness and spirituality. We've just lost Rachel. As a result of the Hadron Particle Collider in CERN, Switzerland, they have been able to come up with various theories. And these are quantum physics, of which I am not so familiar, but I still learn. I still do my best. They have discovered a theory called string theory, entanglement theory, fractals. Higgs boson, two men, discovered a particle which he called the God particle, or the Higgs boson particle. I'm not going to attempt to explain all this because it's not my field. The only reason I've mentioned it is because science is doing its best to describe consciousness. The best description is the unified field of creation, that which unifies everything, and everything is unified by it. Many years ago, maybe 60 or 70 years ago, if you asked a scientist what's in between my hands, the scientist would say nothing. Now the scientists say a complete universe lies between our hands. So there is something huge beyond our comprehension that is going on in existence, and we don't know what it is. All we are able to be aware of is our pursuit, how to live life. What I said before, the experience of being alive. Consciousness is an energy. Some people call it God. Some people apply all sorts of labels. It's an energy. And energy in its purest form does not change. But energy can take on different forms. So consciousness can manifest in different forms. Jeanette, me, Sarah, we are manifested forms of consciousness. The car we drive, the food we eat, all that's going on with the virus, it's all manifested forms of consciousness. It is therefore all forms, all basic forms of existence, everything within it. This includes, and this is very interesting, light and dark, good and evil, because people say, God, I believe in God, and we must get rid of dark. Well, God, the dark or evil is part of God. God, consciousness, is the basis of everything. So everything that manifests is part of that. That I find quite profound. If that's the case, why is there evil? Because we have free will. We can create whatever we want. We can be intelligent, we can be stupid, we can be wise, we can be ignorant, whatever it is that we choose. Unfortunately, many of us, most of us, are programmed and conditioned to think in a particular way. That's another story, but we are able to resolve that if we wish. Most people don't want to. And that's everybody's choice, whatever they want to do. We have an opportunity that is available to us now, when everything seems to be falling apart, to look at what the potential is. The potential is magnificent. A little bit of a digression, but this is important also. Within good is the potential of bad. Within bad is the potential of good. Within good health, there is the potential of illness. Within illness, there is the potential of because each one, we are living in a dualistic, polarized physical reality, which means that if you have one thing, you've got to have the opposite. So the idea is, if we're sick, we know we can be well. If we're not very clued in. We're a little bit ignorant about things. We don't know to. In that is the potential of wisdom, of knowledge. Each one of us has the potential to be whatever we choose to put our attention on. And everything depends on the ability we have to display, to embody as much consciousness as we can. Consciousness, being energy, is like the air we breathe. And within the air, there is this prana, this energy, which vitalizes us, which is more than just the oxygen. The more we breathe, the better we feel. If we don't breathe very well, that means less oxygen. We're not feeling too good. We might even get ill. So we breathe more in order to feel better. There's a whole science on breathing. Buteyko from the Ukraine developed his technique of breathing, the Buteyko method. You can Google it. India has hundreds of different breathing techniques. Same thing with consciousness. The more consciousness we are able to allow to pass through us, in us, that we are able to embody, the more of our human potential will we be able to develop. If darkness is present, then contained within it is the equal potential for light. In the final analysis, it all comes down to individual and group choice. To choose, therefore, one requires knowledge, and knowledge is structured in consciousness. Develop consciousness and your knowledge base expands organically. This is known as knowing. So this is something that I would like you please to pay attention to, because this is the core. Consciousness is not the actual perception, but rather the means of conscious awareness, or being aware consciously of the conscious thinking mind, to be aware of the perception of anything and everything. So we have two elements here. We have the ability to be consciously aware of something, like you are consciously aware of me. I am consciously aware of you. In order to be consciously aware, we are to be able to embody sufficient consciousness, which gives rise to our ability to be consciously aware. So consciousness is not the actual experience. Being consciously aware is the actual experience. The consciousness is just that energy which supports our ability to be consciously aware. So therefore, conscious awareness is the ability to be consciously aware of one's perception. Conscious awareness is expanded as we raise consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the medium by which conscious awareness exists. The fish exists in the medium of water. We can use the water as the example of consciousness being the water for us if we lived in water. Air, prana, is what we exist in. So consciousness is the medium by which the air we breathe, the prana that vitalizes us, is able to exist. So here is a very good example, physical, that we can do to help explain what I have just said. I'm going to just explain it to you, do it at any other time, because I can't do it here. So if I was in a theater and I was on a stage, I could do it. If you stand against the wall with your nose touching the wall, like so, this is the wall, nose touching the wall, and you do not move your head, your conscious awareness of the wall is about 12, 18 inches. So much. If you just turn your eyes to look, your peripheral vision without moving your head, the vision, your awareness and vision of the wall is approximately that amount. Where you're standing is your state of consciousness. What you're perceiving of the wall is your conscious awareness. Where you're standing is your consciousness. The amount of consciousness that you are able to embody, that you're using. And what you see of the wall, that is your conscious awareness. That is what you're able to perceive consciously. That is what you are aware of. Now, if you take one short step backwards, your perception of the wall increases exponentially. Without moving your head, you just see more of the wall. Now, stepping backwards is describing, demonstrating, embodying more consciousness, developing more consciousness. And as we develop more consciousness, our perception, our ability to perceive, our conscious awareness is much larger. Now, let's say one of you are standing at the wall, and this is where you are, and your nose is touching the wall. And I am the one person that stepped back and was able to develop my consciousness. And I ask you, what do you see? And you say, well, you see this and this and this. And I say, I see this, this, and this. And you would say to me, oh, you're lying. That's not true. It doesn't exist. And this is what happens when we talk to people about something they know nothing of. They cannot accept what you say because they're stuck with their nose against the wall and they don't see very much at all. And you've stepped back, you've educated yourself, you have a little bit more knowledge than them, and and they won't accept it. And this is the problem we have on the planet at the moment with coronavirus, the mask, whatever. All these people, wow, they are stuck by the wall and they don't see very much. And others who have taken the time and the trouble and the effort to educate themselves, raise their consciousness by whatever means, meditating, doing whatever it is that they can do to raise their consciousness. And they see a bigger picture. And what happens? You're lying. You're full of BS. And this is the problem we have. And as we raise our consciousness and the people who don't raise their consciousness, there is a natural separation. The people who know and the people who don't know. This is very sad, but this is the way it is. Another thing with consciousness is that it doesn't change. Consciousness of pure energy does not change. Our bodies change. Truth changes according to your level of consciousness. You know something, I'll give you a good example. We were taught about genetics and that the genetic DNA molecules do not mutate. And then 100 years later, Bruce Lipton comes onto the scene. He says, everything you've learned about genetics through out the window, because I've proved, he's a microbiologist through my research, that the DNA molecules do change. They do mutate. So science was right 100 years ago, and now it's wrong. So they come up with something new. 100 years ago, we were told that amalgam fillings are healthy, no problem, and now we're told they are poisonous. As we grow in consciousness, as we grow in knowledge and wisdom, our knowledge base changes. It increases also. Our perception changes. I'm talking far too long. It's very difficult. I'm sorry, but I'll just go as fast as I can. Neil Donald Walsh wrote 8 books. This will end in 10 minutes. Okay. They're saying that in 10 minutes it's going to end, so very difficult. Never mind, I'll just keep going. Neil Donald Walsh wrote 8 books, Conversations with God, Volume 1. Why did God create the universe? When you are everything, you don't know who you are. And if you want to know who you are, as a subject, you have to create an object, because if you cannot observe an object, you don't know what it is. So you create. So God created, split off, created objects so that he could see what he was creating. If I use the word he or she, God, creation, consciousness. So in order to know what you are, who you are, you cannot know this if you're consciousness, if you're pure consciousness. You can only know it if there is a separation where there is a subject, an observer, observing an object. And what we're trying to do is reverse the project, this concept of going from the object and allowing the observer to observe themselves. Now, I've had these experiences. I know what I'm talking about, and it's not possible to describe it so well, but it is possible to observe yourself. So if you are observing yourself, who is observing you? Well, that would be the soul, the higher self. And when people have that experience, it automatically allows them to realize that there is more to our perception than just observing an object. Because when you observe the object, you're also able to observe the observer observing the object. And all this is based in consciousness. Sadhguru said, to be aware of consciousness, one requires a sophisticated instrument to have that experience. And of course, this includes mind and heart, and to be clear of limitations. So why is it that we don't know all these things? Because our instruments, our mind, our heart, our ability to perceive are not as clear, sufficiently clear to be able to allow us to perceive that. When one meditates, and this is where one of my experience is, when one meditates, a formal proper technique, I practice transcendental meditation. And so I have a mantra. And the technique of meditating facilitates the person meditating to transcend the various layers of the mind, of which there are many, until you get to a point which is known as the source of thought. At the source of thought, which is pure energy, the source of everything, source of creation, you have this what is called pure awareness. Now, you're not aware of sitting meditating. You're just aware. There are no thoughts. So you are not really able to even be aware that you are aware. It's only when you come out of the meditation that what happened? Oh, that was wonderful. I felt absolutely wonderful. During that time, there are no thoughts, because in pure consciousness, it's not possible to have anything which is not of itself. You can only have thoughts when you are out of that consciousness, unless you are enlightened. And then that's a different experience. You are having thoughts, but you're in that experience of consciousness, pure consciousness all the time, and they say you're enlightened. Cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, whatever it is. Unity consciousness. So in summation, consciousness is the entire picture of everything we think, we speak, and all the actions we perform, everything we perceive, everything we do, everything depends on how much consciousness you are able to embody, to be connected to. We call it raising consciousness, but I don't like that anymore. It's the potential of that consciousness is already there. All we have to do, all that we can choose to do, is to connect with that consciousness a bit more. Maharishi used to describe the idea of becoming enlightened in this way. You meditate and you touch pure consciousness. You come out of the meditation, you bring a little bit of that consciousness with you. And during activity and all the dramas and traumas, a lot of it leaves you, but a little bit stays. And it's likened to the old way of dyeing a cloth. You take the rough, fresh woven material, you dip it in the dye, you hold it to the sun, it dries, a lot of it goes, the color, a little bit stays, and you keep doing it until the color is fast. Well, we dip ourselves in the dye of consciousness, and we come out and we expose ourselves to the activity of the sun, and a lot of the consciousness leaves us, but a little stays, and we keep doing, and eventually more and more consciousness remains. And that is the process, this beautiful process of accessing more of our consciousness, raising our consciousness, embodying more of this consciousness, and life becomes so much better. I don't know how many minutes we've got left, but if you have any questions, please ask. We've probably got about 3 or 4 minutes.
3.
Sorry?
3 minutes. 2 minutes, 45 seconds.
Yes. So as difficult as it is, I feel very brave to venture forward and describe that which is undescribable. But
Ineffable, yes.
I urge you to do whatever you can to have the experience of going to the source of thought or using any technique that you are able to learn that will actually take you closer to that which is already in place within you. Because the more consciousness you are able to connect with, you will be able to change your life for the better. You'll be able to improve your life exponentially. It is the greatest healer.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
And
you.
the more conscious we are, the more we know ourselves.
Absolutely. You cannot know anything unless you are able to access that consciousness, which gives you the awareness to know yourself. If you don't have sufficient consciousness, you're in a darkened room with no sensory perception of anything at all. You're just lost, which is basically where most of us are, until we are able to bring in more consciousness. It's like being in a dark room and somebody brings in a candle. It's a small light, but it's enough to see. It's enough to get going.
Yeah.
So we do whatever we can. We meditate. Meditation has worked for me. We heal. We go to hypnotherapists or NLP practitioners or homeopath. I'm learning all the time. I've learned to be my own chiropractor. I'm going to be able to fix my neck in a moment. I've taught Abigail how to give me various adjustments. And most of the time, I haven't been to a chiropractor now for some years. And I'm able to get out of trouble because I've learned. And when people say, well, how do you know this? I've learned. How do I know that I can even attempt, as ridiculous as it sounds, to describe consciousness? Because I've learned from people, I've learned different people's perceptions, and the most important thing, I've had my own consciousness. I've had some wonderful experience of consciousness. So I know where I'm going, but I cannot share that with you because